even with we wanting to portray our culture, you don't impose it on either people from your fellow countrymen or other people.
It
That's not
depends.
that, no
It depends.
no no.
Let me give you an
I
instance.
disagree.
Okay, let me
No,
give you an instance. Wait first.
No. Wait.
Before you make another point, let's just handle this one
Wait,
first.
welcome once again to the Expense community, where we definitely have honest conversation. And on this episode of No Cap, as we do it, we're just gonna be having some certain conversations as always. So on today's episode, we're gonna be having a particular topic that we had as well discussed about, and this is all about how we tend to balance up between different cultural expectations. The one we're even talking about is the place of salutation, right? When in a particular society or community we find ourselves, people might expect certain salutations or titles to be added to people's name, but then we find ourselves in other societies or communities or even countries as well, and those things are not necessary. So it's the question of how do we balance up with having this salutation, because there are people who are as well very traditional, and these salutations and titles, or let's say cultural values, are really important. But like I was telling you, before we started the video, is one of my opinion is the fact that some of those things are excesses. Some of these values I'm not saying the values are wrong. It's not about being right or wrong this time around. But I do feel like some of those cultural expectations are excesses. And I do have the opinion that culture, or let's say cultural beliefs or cultural expectations, that as it might sound, should be progressive enough. It shouldn't just be starting because society isn't the same the way it used to be back then. The demography isn't the same the way it used to be back in the days. So I do think that as we're changing, those expectations and stuff should be changing. Just like as we're talking about, maybe like title, giving people with particular hands, how to greet people, all of those. I do think now it doesn't have to be turned into something disrespectful. It could still be respectful, but I feel that these things should be changed. Do you get what I'm saying? So, and it's even funny when it comes to a point where we're imposing this cultural expectations or beliefs on other people. You know what I mean? Of course, you're looking at the place of our own origin, yeah? There are things that people will do, and we expect that these people will carry on with those things. And the truth is this, we're going to find ourselves in places that these things are not really necessary. Let me give you an example. So, something happened to me when I was, in school back then, and I was talking to one of my professors, and I was calling him his name. I was putting a mister in front of his name. Then he called me back, and he told me, like, because of the setting of my school, because of where it was like let's just say in Western society, you don't necessarily have to put the name. You could just call me by my name. And I'm in my head, I'm like, you're older than I am. You're my teacher. You're my professor. I can't call you by name. Do you understand? But he was like, he would really appreciate it if I can just call him by his first name. Do you understand? So, but then in my head, I'm like, I can't really do that. And if I put too much attention on that, it would probably deter me, or let's say hinder me from having regular conversations with that person. Because to me, I don't want to disrespect the person. Yeah. So let's say I would just say, so let's say you were the one, I wouldn't want to say Ore. I'll probably want to say Professor Ore or Dr. Ore or Mr. Ore. But when you prefer me to say Ore, it sounds like
it's hard for you.
Do you get what I'm saying? So that's why I just feel like some of these things are not really. I don't want to say they're not nonsensical, but I feel they are too extreme. And these things have to be cut off. So in that situation, I would want to be free. It's also a place of me working on myself as well. But I think I would want to get to a point where I'm free to now call you by name. Call you Ore, even if you're older than me, but not in a disrespectful manner. So
well, I understand what you're saying, but I do not totally agree. The last point you made, yeah, I kind of agree a bit. What I would say is culture defines who we are.
Okay.
Our culture differentiates us from other people. It's not like it's a major part of what differentiates us from other people, because our culture shows our ideology, philosophy, way of life. It demonstrates a lot of other things. So preserving the culture is essential.
Yeah.
Culture, the way we go about the ideals of the culture shouldn't change. The way we go about carrying out the culture might change, given time, and then
Okay.
changes in. I mean, you have to look at the surrounding, and there are a lot of other things you can consider, but the ideals shouldn't change. So I believe, since culture isn't about the place, rather the people, irrespective of where you are your culture, and you
Okay.
should exhibit that, so that it can differentiate you. It's just like having the cultural attire.
Yeah.
Okay, there are occasions where you wear your
That's why
cultural
you're putting your,
attire.
that's why you're putting your cultural attire today, yeah?
There are occasions where you wear your cultural attire, and I can identify, well, this is this culture,
Yeah.
this is from this culture, this is from this culture. If we're all wearing the same thing, I mean, I can't tell which country you're from. I can't tell where you're from by just looking at you.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's by the time you speak, you talk, you do some things, I can know, like, oh, this thing is known to be from this area. This is the culture of that area. So it identifies you. So, I mean, it's understandable in an instance where you have cultures where you, like where we come from,
Yeah.
you using your right hand to give things is the right way,
Right way.
according to our culture.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily right or wrong, but that is what we believe.
Okay.
So irrespective whether
Is it what we believe or what we have been taught to live by?
we've been taught to live by it because they believed it, so we believe it too.
But the question is why? Okay, let's focus on this first.
Oh,
I think no. Let's focus on this. Let's focus on this before we move on to the next one. Yeah. So talking about the issue of using a right hand to give someone something, is it because we believe it should be done with the right hand, or there is something attached to it?
There is always something that nothing is absolute.
So what?
In any culture,
Why should we give something with the right hand?
In any culture, if you see in a culture, do not eat cow, do not eat pig, don't do this a certain way. There is a reason for it.
That's what I'm saying.
The reason might be stupid. The reason might be brilliant. We might think it's stupid. Someone else might think it's good. Whatever we think the reason is, it is the reason, and it has to be stood by.
But we have no. So what I feel is we should question it. I do think that we need to be critical enough to question some of these things. Not because this is it. I mean, it might come as being progressive. I would agree to be progressive in this manner. But the reason why I'm saying this is also because you can't tell me not to give someone something with the left hand, that it's better to use the right hand. I'm going to ask you a question. And the question, because I'll be critical about it, why do you think it's best to give someone the right hand? So let me give you an example.
But
you know, from the Chinese culture, you and I know this. If I want to give a person my corporate card, I'm going to use two hands. And you know, there is a way to set it. I mean, you don't just you have to give it to them facing them. Do you understand? Yes. You have to use your two hands. Now, that is understandable.
Why?
It's understandable because it's the place of showing respect.
So why is giving right hand?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
But how? Wait, okay.
That's what I'm saying. It's about questioning.
Wait.
No. It's
before you say what you want to say, I want to
okay.
ask you, how does that show respect?
Okay. So I don't really know like the reason from that, but it's a place of like submitting. That's
how?
Why you use two hands.
How?
Wait. It's all about how would I put this, like imagery. But now this is the question.
How?
But wait. That's I feel you know more of the Chinese history than I do. Wait. The thing I'm trying to say is, it's not as if I'm just trying to pick what suits me, yeah. But I'm trying to say we should question some of these things.
So that is why I'm questioning this point because what I'm trying to say is, yeah, like it feels, but why? You can't state why it feels more of respect and why the other one doesn't feel good enough.
Okay.
You don't have reason for either of them. It still boils down to what you feel should be, not what necessarily has to be.
Okay, I also feel the reason why I'm saying this is because I know better from the angle of the right hand thing from the Nigerian culture, from the Yoruba culture. I'm saying this because I know what it is, and I feel the reason why that is put in place is nonsensical, to be honest. I don't think, because looking at what I've heard about, using two hands, I'm not so sure, but it still sounds something that we can... No, this is it. I'm not saying we shouldn't abide by whatever it is we want to abide by, but I'm just saying there are certain things that we should start questioning. The question is, okay, why should we? Do you know the reason why people say, okay, don't give things with your right hand?
True. I understand and I agree, like, yes, we can question. I'm not saying like it's not every single thing that is in the culture that is 100%.
Exactly.
Right? We can question it, but then it's not You don't question in the process of it. If I am the older guy, you are the younger person, I expect you to give me with your right hand. Then you give me to your left hand and tell me, well, I don't agree with it. That is not how it works. That's not how to question it. I'm not the one that created the rule.
Okay.
So you can't come and question it to me,
Okay.
expecting you to abide by it. If you want to question it, go make your research and make it an open debate. Write an article, do something rather than directing it at somebody.
So what about if you are in a global environment and let's say you're in the midst of people who are not necessarily from your culture?
I was going to say something before we started. Like what I was going to say was this. Like, irrespective, because I tried to make the point earlier that culture is not about the place, it's about what identifies us.
Yeah.
So whether we are in our home country, we are in any other place in the world, we still represent our culture. So within ourselves, we should show our culture, not just within ourselves, to anybody. If our culture dictates that when you greet somebody, you bow, I'm not just going to, when I greet my fellow countryman, that I bow. If I greet someone else from another country, I bow. Except the person from another culture explicitly says that I do not like this. Then portray your culture like you said, your professor said, do not call me. Except that he's fine. That is your culture. People will know you. Oh, that guy, he always says sir or adds the title. Yeah, that is how, people from his country are expected to. That is one way of identifying you.
But this is what I'm going to say as well, in addition to what you said. Now, what I learned something, as much as we want to portray our culture, and I love the fact that we always want to portray our culture, because I do the same as well. We portray our culture because we love it. However, I always feel that number one, we shouldn't impose it on other people. That's number one.
But impose it on who? On your fellow countryman or another person?
I mean, both sides. I do think, even with we wanting to portray our culture, you don't impose it on either people from your fellow countrymen or other people.
It depends.
No,
it depends.
No,
let me give you an instance.
I disagree.
Okay, let me give you an instance. Wait first.
No. Wait.
Before you make another point, let's just handle this one first.
Wait. I'm still on this one.
Okay.
You don't impose it on a fellow countryman, and I do feel you shouldn't even impose it on even people who are not your fellow countrymen.
True. Okay, can I say something?
You might portray it. It's an individual decision to portray culture, but you don't start imposing it on other people. You can give suggestions, but you can't impose it on them.
Okay.
By making them feel like they're wrong if they don't do exactly what you're doing.
Okay, I agree with you. But like, see now, if there is, let's use the title.
Okay.
Back at home, we address people by their title, sir, professor, madam, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Okay, we meet. We're in a foreign country. There is this older person from my country.
Yeah.
I'm not just going to say because this country we're in doesn't mind whether you add title, and I wouldn't add title to him. It's disrespectful to him.
Okay.
So he's going to expect that I will do that, irrespective of the fact that I'm not back home. We are the same countrymen. We understand the culture.
But that's not imposing.
That's what I was saying. But okay.
You're the one deciding. The person didn't decide for you.
No, if the person insists that you next time you see me, like if I say James, or if I say James, and he's like, that is wrong, don't call me back. You know the culture, you should add next time I need you to add that to him. That is understandable. But
you're imposing. The person is imposing then.
Me, what I would say.
But I feel the person is imposing in that situation.
In a way, but I feel it's acceptable. I feel it's acceptable in a situation where it doesn't affect me. I see you do something on your own without anybody. But what you're doing, you could have done it in a way that shows the culture. I would never tell you how to do it. That kind of imposing isn't necessary. But when it affects both of us, I can't just think about it because I feel or because it shouldn't be. No, I have to consider the other person in the situation.
So this is what this is the angle I'll try to bring it from now. I'm still on the same issue of imposing something, yeah? It's understandable, like I don't know how legit this might be, or let's say how relatable this might be. When people say, if you're in Rome, you do like the Romans, yeah? Just wait. I know you're gonna debunk that very soon. When people say when you're in Rome, you be like the Romans, yeah? I do think, yeah, that if we find ourselves in a place where, let's say, we've come together or we've come from, we can start putting that like, okay, this is the environment. because it's the environment, we have to abide by those particular values. Because like we said, some things are cultural, yeah.
Yeah.
Now it's just like in the Chinese society as well. There are certain things we need to abide by. Do you get what I'm saying? Yeah. But then when you find yourself in, so let's put it this way. Do you know that I do think that if we find ourselves in a different environment, their culture might somewhat supersede our own culture?
No.
Because no.
Culture can supersede culture.
No. The reason why I'm saying this is this, because in a particular society or environment, some cultures, or let's say some values or principles, are primary, and some are secondary.
For that culture.
No, not necessarily for that culture. For the place of okay, let's
in the culture in that place.
In that place, exactly, because yes. The dominant one is the primary one.
Yes.
And the other ones, let's say the ones that have come from different regions,
yes,
become secondary, because you can't bring them and start overriding what they have in a particular.
But are you overriding? It's within you and within. Let me give you a scenario.
Cultural living is not just it's not just within you, because whatever
definitely
much as you say it's within you as well.
It's also external.
Exactly.
But that's the thing. See, the thing is whether you intentionally or non-intentionally want to show your culture, you always show your culture.
Sure.
Because your culture is part of you. Now you can intentionally show a lot of it. And by default, you already show to an extent. Now, when you go, that sentence of when you're in Rome, act like Roman, everything is contextual.
Yeah.
There's a context to it. It's not just if you don't drink and you go to a place where they will drink, are you now going to start drinking?
Oh yeah,
no. So it's contextual.
Yeah, sure.
So you need to understand. You need to be observant. You go somewhere, you don't just try and start. This is how I do back at home. This is how I want to do it. No. Understand the culture. See
exactly. Now you're
talking.
But
wait, no.
You get what I'm saying?
No. I understand you. You have to understand the culture.
Exactly.
I'm in a place where they need to be quiet. Back at home, I might be loud.
I was going to say that.
Maybe I might be loud, but in that place,
be lousy.
I need to be quiet. But exactly. Now, assuming in that place, in my own apartment, I and my fellow countrymen, we can be louder than I would be outside, but not too loud that I would disturb my neighbors.
Exactly, yeah.
Within that place, we are being free. We are doing like we act at home.
But just like what you said now. What you said now means the particular culture or the particular principle in that community you found yourself is primary.
Definitely.
Exactly.
Definitely.
And yours is not secondary. Yours does not supersede.
Definitely. Okay. But it's still contextual. It's still contextual.
Yeah, it is.
It's still contextual because I believe that you should be yourself, be your culture as much as possible without it, disrespecting others. If it doesn't disrespect others or disrespect the place you are, then it's fine. If your lecturer doesn't have a problem with you calling him professor, then do it. That's the way you will have done at home.
Okay.
Then do the same thing. If that person doesn't insist that you give them something with your left hand, if that is the culture you've grown up in, you're not arguing with it, and you feel like giving yes, you can argue with it, but in the instance you are not arguing with it, you're okay with it, and you believe that giving things with the right hand is respectful, you will do it not to your fellow countrymen but to everybody. They might not understand what you're doing.
But you remember what I told you? Sorry to cut you short. Remember what I told you, that I give people things with my right hand, not primarily because it's culture. You know that, right? Remember I told you.
Yes.
Remember I explained to you back then that it's because my dominant hand is right. And that's why I would do all of those things with my right and give people things with my right hand. And I told you that I also give people things with left hand. Do you understand?
You have a problem with that stuff back at home, so
exactly. You get what I'm
but
saying?
like for me,
but for someone who has someone who's got dominant in the left, you're gonna use the left.
Me, I'm dominant right. I give things with right. There's sometimes the stuff is closer to my left. Subconsciously, I put it in my right and I give.
Okay.
Even receiving, most times I always try to receive with my right, even if it's easier to receive with my left, because I believe it's more respectful.
Okay.
I understand the culture. The reasons might not be the best, but I understand from a place of culture, this is how we do. This is what we perceive to be more respectful.
Okay.
And that's what I do to anybody. When I greet the same way I greet at home. I act title all the time. Nobody has ever complained. If they complained, I will take note of it and stop. But as I come, I will still follow when I talk to my fellow countrymen. I will still add title because I know they won't complain.
Yeah,
that
which
is respectful to them.
exactly.
So that's what I'm saying. So I'm like, you live your culture. You should portray your culture anywhere you are. Until the point, or not up to the point where it will become disrespectful
To someone else.
to that society you are in, or to the person from another culture. So it's just like.
But I got some contentions to that as well. The contention is this. Now, this is not about appropriating it or wanting someone to take this or take that. It's just about being reasonable and being critical. You know how much I would always question these things about culture. You know, I've always been critical when it comes to question. I mean, to culture, I'm always questioning it. Now, let's think about it from this angle. I do feel that a lot of people should pay attention to wherever they found themselves.
Definitely.
Pay attention to the gathering they found themselves.
Definitely.
Pay attention to now, because that's why we say people should be global citizens. Definitely. And when we call ourselves global citizens, because I feel like if care's not taken, if barriers or boundaries are not created, culture becomes a brainwash. And I'll explain to you. It's just the way a religious belief, as good as it might be and sound, it can be a brainwash.
True.
It brainwashes you to the extent that you don't see anything good in other people.
True.
It brainwashes that you don't see anything good with any other culture or cultural values from other people. True. You feel like yours is the best, and then it becomes really problematic, and it becomes even toxic in the society. So then that's what I'm now trying to say, that if we don't open our minds, because the reason I'm saying this is people have become too close when it comes to this cultural standpoint, cultural beliefs. We're just so bent on these things, and we're not open-minded to other people's culture. Do you get what I'm saying? We just want to keep going with what we have learned all this while, but I feel there is so much more we can enjoy. So if I find myself in a very global environment, as much as I will portray my culture, which I would of course, but the thing is, I'm not going to impose it on other people, but at the same time, I'm going to try to create a balance. And because I also feel that the more we become too closed or too stereotypical with or too dogmatic with our own original culture, we might be cut short from enjoying some benefits.
I think we're saying the same thing in a way, because I completely agree with you. Don't be just.
I'm thinking you're conservative.
Don't be just.
I'm being progressive.
No. Don't be. I'm not stuck on our culture. I don't go somewhere and be like, this culture is bad. My culture is good. No,
exactly.
Me, I'm curious. I'm a curious person, so I like to know.
Yeah.
Even though it might seem weird in the beginning, but I would still like to know. Mm-hmm. I might not end up doing it. I might not end up believing it, but I would like to know. Mm-hmm. I would like to be informed and understand. At least, even it's essential, because when you understand, you're able to act well in different situations. Because we're in China now. This country, China, this is how they act. Mm-hmm. This is the culture. So you're mindful. You don't go and make mistakes. You are in the UK, this is how they act. You are in France, this is how they act. You are in Tunisia, this is how they act. Whatever you are. So it's essential to be open-minded, to be aware. Don't be closed-minded.
Sure.
Right? But at the same time, like you said, you also should portray your culture. Portray your culture. Be respectful of the others. I think it's as simple as that. Portray your culture while still being respectful of the others, which is what I said. Portray your culture, but stop before it becomes disrespectful to the other person's culture. Like them telling you that, in this place you have to eat with fork and knife. Let's just assume in their culture you have to eat with fork and knife, and where you come from, we eat with hand too. And you're like, no, I want to eat with hand. You are being disrespectful to the culture. Mm-hmm. If you're at home, eat with hand. Nobody's going to. Despite the fact that you are not in your country, you can still eat with hand in your house.
That's right.
But in that particular place, if the culture is you must use a fork, and then you respect it. That's if not, get out.
True. That's right.
So portray your culture, but not to the point where you become disrespectful
to someone else,
to the other cultures, especially in an international community where it's not just that country's culture,
exactly.
But where there are other people. So portray your culture, and then obviously, I don't know, but for me, I expect if we come from the same country, from the same tribe with the same culture. I expect you understand the culture. I expect you understand, and some things that yes, other people might not understand. I might not do with other people. I will do with you because we are coming from the same place. And even if, let's assume I'm a professor, and my students say, "Ore, ore, 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 ore." I might not necessarily expect or try and force that you call me Professor Ore. But naturally, it will sound weird if you call me Ore. Because we are both from the same place. And it's just like I don't see country, I just see my countryman, and I expect this is how you would
but you know, it's also a level, I feel that, sorry to cut you, but I also feel it's a level of exposure and maturity when someone who comes from your, who necessarily does, okay, well, let's just say someone who has come from your same place of origin calls you by name like other people. I feel it's a level of maturity that we get to that we don't find it to be weird.
It is me, I think it is wrong. It's because I see people on the internet, I see people acting differently. I'm like, this person would act like this when you're at home. Why are you acting like this outside? You are not your true self.
No.
Yeah, you're being fake.
Okay, this is
that guy.
Okay.
That is going to call me Ore as his professor. If he was back at home, he wouldn't dare to do that.
But
so why is he doing it?
Now, I'm gonna. This is where I'm now going. I think we're going to be having a lot of arguments.
What made you change? Why do you think calling me Ore now is better than calling me Mr. Ore?
Times are changing.
What is the time? Times are changing. It's not time. This is not a matter of time.
Times are changing.
No.
Times are changing.
No, this is culture.
Times are changing. But you know, culture has got to change as well.
Culture has got to change to another person's culture.